Welcome to all of you new initiates and newly elected honorary fellows and existing honorary fellows and officers to the convocation ceremony, and welcome to the fellowship in the American College of Surgeons. What a great accomplishment. You need to be proud of yourselves, and you have worked so hard to get to this point, and you deserve it richly. I know you're not all in one big room, but you ought to hug the ones you love and pat yourselves on the back. You've really deserved this. These are unprecedented times in which we're living right now, but they're not insurmountable times. We're all going to get through this. You're going to get through this. You've made big sacrifices, and we will get through this. I'll have to say, though, these times have been enlightening to me. As president-elect, I've had a chance to see the inner workings of the College of Surgeons, and I have to tell you, I've never been more proud to be a fellow of the college, and I've never been more proud of the American College of Surgeons than I have been now during these times. The college, its leadership, its staff, the fellows everywhere have really sprung forward to support surgeons all across this country in tremendous ways. They immediately formed a twice-a-week incident command WebEx and met to deal with issues in Chicago locally, with furloughs and all of that, working from home, and also to deal with the issues that surgeons were facing everywhere. And it impacted all of us all over the country, closing down practices. It was amazing. The college immediately stepped in and gave us guidelines on how to tier down our surgery, and later guidelines on how to tier it back up. They created tools for reassuring patients as to how to get back into surgery and not be afraid of healthcare later. They created, and we actually, this group, formed a practice protection committee, which did unbelievable work lobbying for surgeons and physicians' practices in general to get support for small business administration and financial support to offload employees. It was impressive how the might and determination of the American College of Surgeons was mobilized to help all of us. And then we're struck with the unbelievable video of George Floyd being killed, and the turmoil that caused throughout our country, and the attention that it drew to an issue which so many of us have tried to hide from or hide in general. In the college, which has a long history and a very good position on diversity, also decided to put out a statement, which it did very quickly, and I think it was a very good statement I'm proud of. But the Board of Regents also said, you know, a statement is just not enough. We need to find the ways that we as the American College of Surgeons are able to improve on issues of race, and the ways we're able to improve surgery, and the ways we're able to improve healthcare. And they formed a task force on racial issues. They asked us to, and I was just honored and turns out privileged really to serve as the chair of this task force. It's been one of the most gratifying experiences of my life, and I think it will change the American College of Surgeons, and I hope and I believe it will change American surgery. They asked us to identify the structural and procedural and cultural areas within the college itself that need to improve, and identify actionable, substantive changes that need to be made, and recommend changes to the Board of Regents to implement sustained progress in this area. The people that have served on this committee are unbelievable. We came together, created a culture that was safe, and we had some really deep, hard conversations, very introspective into the College of Surgeons, and we've come up with recommendations that are going to be transformative, I believe. We will have made those to the Board of Regents by the time you see this. And having talked to them and knowing their heart and their determination, I'm sure they're going to take these and turn it into something even better than what we've recommended. But we've looked at our zone of control, the things that are within our control within the college, how people promote, get access to the college. When you come to a meeting, are the people sitting on the podium and presenting, do they look like you? And multiple other avenues of education and research. Our zone of influence, which is, we have a very influential organization, and we can influence other surgical organizations and other medical societies. We can influence chapters, we can influence departments of surgery, we can influence practices, and we're looking for ways to influence all of those areas. And then a zone of concern, those things that we can't influence or control, but are impactful to us. Federal legislation, state legislation, regulations. And the college has a strong advocacy arm, and we will find the ways to work on those areas. It has been extremely impactful, and I think you will be amazed to see it. A takeaway message in the beginning for all of us, and one that's really struck me, is to be truly excellent, we need to be excellent at issues of race. Race is an issue everywhere in American life. It's just overt or it's hidden. If we intend to pursue excellence, we must pursue excellence in this area of race. That's true for the American College of Surgeons. It's true for every hospital. It's true for every practice, and it's true for every one of us as surgeons. It's not enough to be colorblind. We must be color bold. Our country is at a time when I believe it is ready to do more for that. And I think these conversations are difficult, but we can have them, and they will help us be better as surgeons. Our motto is to serve all with skill and fidelity. The college is designing programs to help us be better able to serve all, and for us to have more skill and better fidelity in many ways. I'll segue a little bit by telling you how I got where I am today. These are my parents. They've both been unbelievably impactful to me. And I did not really realize until recently what a privilege. It's a charged word, but it's an important word for us to get comfortable with. What a privilege it has been to me to have been raised by them. Very quickly, my dad grew up in deep Appalachia during the Depression. His mother was a missionary to Appalachia. He got out of that, went to college, served in both theaters of World War II, and ultimately went to medical school. Married my mother in college or right after the war. He went on to become a professor of surgery, to be a transplant surgeon that helped found CEOP, which was the founding organization that ultimately became UNOS in the transplant world. He was the first surgeon to successfully replant a severed hand in our country. And in 2011, he won the AMA, American Medical Association Distinguished Service Award for his service as a public health servant running the North Carolina Department of Health for over 35 years. Amazing man. He taught me how to be a surgeon, and learning to be a surgeon was the easiest thing in the world for me because I had those role models and his thought process. My mother was also an incredible woman. She was a principal of a high school by the time she was 21. After they were married, she formed multiple businesses in Winston-Salem here, sold most of those. Several of them are still working, I guess, unless COVID killed one of them. They are still working. But importantly, she helped found and then served as the pro bono executive director of the Stouffer Foundation, whose mission was to identify underprivileged kids and get them into the prep schools, mostly in the South, but the elite prep schools in America. Give these kids a chance. They scoured the country to find kids who'd had like 1,600 on their SATs and great grades, and brought them together and gave them classes on how to do interviews and live, gave them a full ride scholarship to these schools, bought them a wardrobe of clothes, showed them how to wear them, and then went with them to the interviews and convinced these admissions committees to take them. Upon her death, we got letters from all over the country from people saying how grateful they were for her. These were partners in law firms, executives in S&P 500 companies. It was truly impressive. Anyway, that helps us get through there. I've learned an awful lot from them, and I've learned from them to learn from everyone I've ever met. And I want to impart to you some messages about being a better surgeon. And it's not about cutting and sewing and dissecting and tying. It's about being a better surgeon and more successful in surgery and enjoying your career as you progress. I want to start with a parable I learned from Stephen Covey, who's a business writer. He talks about teaching business school class where he puts this jar on a desk and he fills it with these stones and he says to the class, "Is this jar full?" And they say yes. And then he puts some pebbles and sand in it and says, "Is this jar full?" And they say yes. And then he puts some water in it and he says, "Is this jar full?" And they say, "I'm not sure anymore." And he asks the class, "What is the lesson that you learned from this?" And they always say, "You can always do more. There's always more that you can do." But the lesson is you have to put the big rocks in first. You can always do more, and we always do, and surgeons always rise to that occasion. It's one of the things that makes me most proud to be a surgeon. But if you're going to do the things that make you healthy and live a long life and enjoy your career, and if you're going to be able to do the things that make you have a successful career, you have to know what they are, and they are your big rocks, and you have to put the big rocks first, whether that's God or family or your health. There needs to be a big rock for each of those. There needs to be a big rock for your biggest projects and the difference makers in your life and your career. Put those rocks in first. Another thing that people don't get taught, but I've learned from sitting through lots of committee meetings, being a chairman of surgery, being on the North Carolina Medical Care Commission, how do you actually influence decision making? And it is done by sitting at the table, and it's hard to get to that table, and we need to correct that. But it is done by working on what are the starting assumptions of the problem you're solving, defining the boundary conditions of the debate, and deciding on the process to decide what is successful and how we're going to decide what to do, and defining the goals and the outcomes of the process subsequently. If you can notice when committees are working on that, or your group is working on that, or your hospital's medical executive committee is working on that, if you will pay attention to these areas in the beginning, you will help them get to the right place. It's also very important to know those who speak the most and those who speak the loudest are not always moving the decision their way. It looks like that's what's happening to young people in the room, but that's not how it's actually working. It's those who put aside their personal agendas and contribute positively to the mission at hand who get heard and who move the conversation to where it needs to be. The success you see in others, being head of your practice group, being the chair of the medical executive committee of your hospital, being the president of the American College of Surgeons or the president of the Southern Surgical Association. The success people see in that way is not the actual success. It's a byproduct of doing what you love. It's a byproduct of spending your time and energy and your discretionary attention doing something that you care about and seeing the progress made. The other things come from that. They're great. You want them. But they're not the point. And the things that the people who focus on those things as the point they sacrifice the fulfillment, they sacrifice the joy and the friendships you make along the way, and they're not worth it. I learned from a book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. He was talking about intelligence, but I've realized that this applies to surgery as well. I thought when I was a young surgeon that your success in surgery was linearly dependent on your surgical talent. And I worked really hard to get lots of surgical talent and tried my best to get as much as I could. But it turns out that it's really important. Better surgeons have better practices, better surgeons have better outcomes. Poor surgeons spend their entire life a millimeter from the right plane, and that's just no fun. So it's very important. But after a point, the difference that the really great surgeons have and the thing that makes careers great is other things. It is the ability to build teams. It is the ability to make the people around you better than they would be if you were not there with them. And that is this difference between the yellow line and the white line. Let patients thank you. I recently had a little MI. I wanted to tell my cardiologist thank you so badly, and he kept saying, "It's nothing, Wayne, we do this all the time." And I realized it was just a little posterolateral branch. It wasn't a left main. It wasn't a proximal LAD. But it was really important to me that what he done, taking that elephant off my chest. You're going to have 1,000 times patients want to thank you. And it may be for removing a sebaceous cyst or evacuating a thrombosed hemorrhoid or taking out their gallbladder. It doesn't have to be a retrohepatic vena cava injury. And we always said, and I've always said so many times, we got a great team. It's really, we do this every day. Take the time to say, thank you for noticing. I appreciate that you noticed the care that we gave to you. It's important to me. There are two reasons for that. It does not dishonor their emotion. And also, it will allow you to harvest the joy that's out there from taking care of patients. And ultimately, that's the payoff for being a surgeon. You own the wounds that you create. I'm sure you've been told that 100 times in residency, but don't forget, That doesn't just mean go check on the wounds you made. That doesn't mean just see your post-ops. We own the wounds we create. We own the wounds that we create to other people. And those folks you've harmed, those people you accidentally insulted, those people who cut off from conversation, those people you have failed to include in the decision-making process, we owe it to them to make that right. It takes a big person to do it, but you will build hundreds of friends, and you will build a team around you that will function properly if you pay attention to that. You own the wounds that you create. Listen with your eyes. It's so hard with the EHR, but people need to know you're paying attention to what they are saying. It is a natural factor of human beings, and it's really important with patients. But you know what? It's even more important with our family. If when you get home at the end of the day, no matter how tired you are, you look at your spouse, you look at your children, you let them say what they're going to say, listen with your eyes around everyone. Live on last year's salary, not on next year's salary. I want to say 3 things that I can tell everybody that will listen to me that will make your life happy. Live your life with a presumption of virtuous intent. Live your life with a presumption of virtuous intent. It will relieve you that burden of feeling like everybody is there to obstruct you. Everybody is there to get in your way. They're not. They frankly don't care that much about you. Live your life with a presumption of virtuous intent, and you will feel happier. You will feel more fulfilled in what you do every day, and roadblocks will disappear in front of you. Catch people doing something right 6 times as often as you catch people doing something wrong. People will move mountains to help you if you catch them doing something right. And you will also find that you feel like you see your world is much better around you because you're making the initiative, making it an effort to see the things that are going right around you instead of just taking them for granted. And lastly, don't forget why you went into this field in the first place. It is the greatest profession in the world. And you've gone into this now, you're at a young stage with altruism, and you've gone into this to make other people well, or to help people, or to be a part of something greater than yourself. Never lose sight of that. Write that down now. On your way out of this meeting, write down what it means to you to be a surgeon, and look at it every year or 2. Make sure you never lose sight of that. Surgery, the opening and exploration and repair of the living human body, is an awesome responsibility afforded only to a few. To be privileged to be counted among those is a high honor. Roger Sherman said that. No words could ever be more true. It's also a high honor to be inducted into the American College of Surgeons, and I want to congratulate you on that. You are joining the greatest profession there is, and you're going to have the greatest job there is on earth. I extend this to you as a formal invitation. Get engaged with the American College of Surgeons. If you're a surgeon committed to serve all with skill and fidelity, we are here to serve you. Congratulations. Thank you for coming to this convocation, and I will see you at subsequent meetings.